At about 8 p.m. on April 13th, receiving news from the Dutian District Police, the professional forces of the Hà Provincial Police were quickly present in the area of Muang Nyok, Tri Village, Mok Nam Commune. Flashlights swept back and forth as if to pierce the dense night to better see the dead body floating on the ditch. The scene examination of the police agency. The investigation was carried out expeditiously and cautiously in the presence of representatives of the Control Institute with forensics and local authorities. Ditches, 5.8 m wide body location, calm water surface, standing water with a depth of about 0.3 meters. There are many duckweed and nipa palm trees floating on the surface. This water ditch flows in the direction of east-west, bordering Tri Village, Mok Nam Commune and Bell Village, Chujiang Commune. According to the information of the people, about 18 hours on the same day of discovery. This body is from Chuang Village. I still go out to catch fish here in the afternoon. I went fishing. I looked for a distance, but I couldn't find anything. I found something entangled. I kept going back and forth a few times, then there was something. If I had a hunch about it, I would come back. The third time, the fourth time, I would only find out. We go to the market now and see that the corpse has rotted and this victim may have been dead for 5 to 7 days. At first glance, apart from the fact that at the scene there are 2 blocks, 1 brick, and 1 rock, and there are 2 bamboo poles that are held by an umbrella over the victim. I think this is a serious case. This corpse has been submerged in water for too long and has no identification or property, but the clothes on the body are quite good, so it could be a person. From another locality to expand the market area in the dark of night, the autopsy team still persisted in finding traces or weapons that the perpetrator might have left behind after committing the crime. Maybe the victim was robbed and raped here, but due to resistance, the subject killed and brought him. The body is dumped in the ditch to dispose of the funeral. This is where the perpetrators have taken action, or they committed the crime elsewhere and then brought the body here to create a fake scene, to distract. The autopsy is a very important factor to help guide the investigation agency at this time. The area of the ditch to generate electricity for the victim's body is located in the middle of the village's rice fields. Nearby is the cemetery area of the commune, while the residential area is far away. Very deserted. Is it a convenient location for the subject who has chosen to commit the crime? One of the evidences collected after the autopsy was a brick on the back of the victim, with 3 old white ceramic tiles on 3 sides, most likely that a household broke down when repairing. House. Dates are taken from which area has anything to do with the head of the case. When an investigator visiting the village came across some important information. The search for the area expanded the area of the scene. We discovered that at the beginning of the village, at the people's house, there was a piece of concrete like the one that had been pressed on the victim's body. The owner has provided that about 6 months ago, if our house broke down the kitchen auxiliary work and let people build a new one, they had to put 3 concrete blocks in front of the gate. We determined that such a concrete was lost. The discovery of the location of the brick near the crime scene area has not revealed anything more for the investigation. Therefore, officers and soldiers of the Criminal Technical Department of the Hà Provincial Police had to continue to review other details of the autopsy. Because the corpse was soaked in water for too long, it was in the stage of decomposition. Decomposed faces no longer capture fingerprints, so identification of the victim is deadlocked. The traces at the scene were almost wiped out due to heavy rain a few days earlier. The autopsy team only obtained a few specimens for later genomic traceability comparison when needed. In order to clearly determine the cause of death and the mechanism of formation, the investigation agency continued to send a request for forensic examination to the Forensic Center of Hà Nam Province. Was carefully conducted. In the head there were many long U-shaped tears, with 3 equal sides of 2.3 centimeters in size. Inside the skull there were many broken bones. Conclusion of the autopsy. Concluding multiple head and face injuries, the main cause of death of the victim was severe traumatic brain injury. It was determined that there were signs of crime on April 14. Hanam Provincial Police Investigation Agency decision to initiate a criminal case. Under the direction of the Director of the Provincial Police, the Police Chief of the Criminal Investigation Department and the Chairman of the Society convened an emergency in the whole unit. Stood for a complicated case without the identity of the victim, without a sign. Because of the crime scene, determining the perpetrator's motives stemming from personal conflicts, love, or simply murder and robbery is still an unsolved problem for investigators. After hearing the report on the situation, the leader of the Crime Investigation Department of Social Order assigned specific tasks for working groups to deploy in many investigation directions. The victim's exterior was leopard-colored shirt, pants were worn in the form of a skirt, and her feet were wearing socks and toenails were all painted. Her head was short, and her face was completely disfigured, when we did an autopsy. So that even the forensics could confirm it, it was assumed that the victim was deformed, so she guessed it was a young girl between the ages of 20 and 25, so the initial thought was that it must be the girl of the restaurant, or doing business far away on the way back. The subjects killed from the hypothesis about the victim's work. The investigation agency conducted a review of female employees working at the hotel restaurants in the area of Fuli City and neighboring provinces, see if anyone has reported missing or absent for many days and has not returned to work. Even the hostesses who often go to karaoke bars or wash their hair are also monitored, but all the efforts of many working groups have not yet achieved any positive results. Starting with maybe killing robbers, maybe killing for the purpose of erotic content, can be said to contradict personal interests. And if you want to kill people, property, of course, property in your name is a chain that won't be lost, and love has not been proven. The basis for us to judge, of course, is that the object is not confined to the thing. The commune's area can do business, so expand the area and widely inform the search on the 63 provinces and cities as well as the surrounding areas to find the whereabouts. The main investigation direction of the case is to clarify the identity of the victim. The investigation agency hopes to get more information from the missing cases of localities across the country. Many days have passed and then a ray of hope flashed when the Hanam Provincial Police suddenly received a news from the Friendship Police. Through the body of the police officer of Kwangchung Ward in the city, Hung Yen determined there was a case in the area. A woman from Mok Chau District, Sun La Province, went there to rent a room and then stayed for 2 or 3 days, until April 13th, she went somewhere unknown. When she first received the news, the ward police said that according to the hotel owner, she was wearing the same clothes and special personal belongings. But after receiving the news, the investigation agency sent officers down. Through verification, it was determined that it was about her height as well as about some of her identity features, although she had similar clothing characteristics such as height and weight. Like age, it's not right for that level. The agency determined that she was not a victim. Days later, there were still a few more reported missing cases in provinces such as Yanbai and Bac. John, go to the investigating agency to receive the identity, although the result is still not the victim in the case. The work seems to be searching for a needle in the bottom of the tank. But the special committee still refuses to give up, sending scouts to approach motorbike taxi drivers near the scene to get more information about their customers who drove to see if anyone had the description close to the victim. Until April 27th, we received a notification from Immigration Department, sent to the local police, that there was a Chinese woman who entered Vietnam through Hue Gi border gate at 12 noon on April 8th. Then we found that this person was born in 1964. It was a little different. The problem with the original one at the scene, because the woman was deformed, we also suggested that we would like to get information from the family in China or those who do business with us. Family.information from the Immigration Department said that the report to find a missing person was sent by Chin and his wife because Ms. Thursday On has an address at the locomotive complex of Huang Mai District, Hanoi, with the content of the report about his family acquaintance who is Chinese. But after entering Vietnam with an appointment but suddenly lost contact for many days, we continued to be provided by Ms. Thursday On, a relationship that when Tien came to Vietnam, She usually stayed in the Ben area. Gia Lam Kar in Long Bien district determined to follow the newly provided clues. A working group of Ha Nam Provincial Police immediately set out to coordinate with the Gia Lam District Police, Hanoi City, to review the whole thing. Motels and hotels in the area, where Ms. Tien may have stayed. On the other hand, through the Immigration Department, invite Ms. Tien's family to work with the investigation agency to identify relatives. Initially for relatives to receive image area. So and through these photos, the husband and the child received are quite similar. That's why we also approved the method of taking all the genes of Tien's son and sister to propose to the Institute for Assessment. Then it was the victim of the 1964 film Tien Tien in Zhejiang, Jiang, China. The identity of the victim has been clarified. But the reason leading to her tragic death is still a lot of confusion. Tien's relatives said that whenever she comes to Vietnam, she often looks for a transaction to sell samples of all kinds of luxury goods. Plastic bags containing soy milk in Tu Son Town, Bac Ninh province, but when scouts came into contact with this production facility, he said that Tien had one person once. Motorbike taxi arrived a few months ago. Because the price is more reasonable than other stores that my establishment has taken, So Fook took a few tons of Ms. Tien's goods. They pay in a pillowcase during transactions. Most recently, the owner of this establishment owed 600 million VND to schedule a payment date for Ms. Tien before receiving new goods. But I haven't seen her yet. During the payment process together, a few times, Hung, the motorbike taxi, brought Tien to introduce himself as the director of the factory. I only knew that Hung introduced it, but actually I did not. I can't know her. I don't know Chinese, Tien doesn't know Vietnamese. The two people's conversation is through Hung's translator, leaving Bac Ninh even though it's getting dark, but after consulting the expert board. The case, the scout came to work with the police of Long Bien district, Hanoi. The investigative agency determined that every time Tien went to Vietnam to stay in Long Bien district, it was possible that a man named Hung was driving a motorbike taxi. She also works in the area on. Besides that, after entering Vietnam through Hue Gi border gate at 12 o'clock at the intersection, she made a phone call to contact with Ms. An, said that she would meet her when she returned to Hanoi. But at 17 o'clock on the same day, when Ms. An contacted her, her phone was turned off. It is not clear where she went, by what means, and if do you ride Hung's motorbike taxi or not. The next morning, with the help of the police of Long Bien district, the scouts secretly checked and identified the suspect named Hung at Gia Lam bus station. But that person has another name, Viet. So what is Hung, i.e. Viet's background? Is the subject known to Tien or not? Another important piece of information, that man is originally from Ha Nam, but the subject could not be touched without a clear basis. These questions of the investigator were sent to the professional unit of the Ha Nam Provincial Police. This is the place where the identity of citizens in the locality is kept. Province and can look up criminal information, required to be searched by officers and soldiers of the Crime Information Center. The results show that the suspect is named Pham Thursday Viet, or another name is Pham Man Hung, born in 1963, born in Nha Xa village, Moc Nam commune, To Tien district, Ha Nam province, without a criminal record while living in the locality. With this result, if true, Hung is the culprit, the investigative agency is strengthened with faith in the original judgment. The subject of the crime must be a local or familiar with the terrain to choose such a deserted place to commit the crime. At this time, navigate to the support of focused heavily on the subject Hung. Through investigation, it was verified that Hung had left the locality to work far away for a long time. So why is he involved in the local case, and if he causes the crime, will anyone else accompanies that crime action? Hearing the initial results, the project committee assessed that it was likely that the perpetrator had two or more people who could carry a very heavy rock on top of the victim's body. Go deep. In Hung, we determined that this was a man who had been wandering the Chinese border for 10 years. Knowing Chinese, Hung recently had a nephew, a sister's daughter named Tan, and now he often goes to Hung with him. Hung, just going out and doing business, Wherever they go, we verify that now they are taking care of their biological mother, Tan's grandmother, and Hung's biological mother in the city. Hung Yen is in the hospital. We went deeper. On those days, both of them were present near the scene area music. From these comments of the committee, specializing in a one-shot reconnaissance project arranged in secret clothes to track the subject's movements. Tan. He was born in 1989, graduated from a tourism professional class at a school in Hanoi but has not yet gone where to do. The family has 2 brothers. Tan is the oldest child and he also has no criminal record, has a lot of free time, so Tan also has complicated social relationships. It takes a lot of money. It took a lot of effort to find out during the scouting process. At night, Tan often went to his girlfriend's house. Focused on his relationships. Tan's girlfriend was a student at Hanam Pedagogical College. Having known each other for 3 years, after carefully researching this relationship, the detective gathered a very important source of information. The working group secretly invited her to the provincial police headquarters to work. Here she was about 10 days ago. Tan came to her house in Dien Bien Village, Chuyen Nguai Commune, Tutien District, invited to go to a birthday party of a group of friends. While in high spirits, Tan gave her some Chinese money and expensive items. Other money. Immediately the investigation agency sealed and seized these important evidences at Tan's girlfriend's house to serve the investigation. The right time to pee the case has come. Under the direction, the special committee has come up a very detailed plan of catching and searching the residence of both subjects at the same time, quickly and accurately, but not allowing the 2 subjects to destroy other important evidences of the case. The first task group quickly arrested the subject Pham Minh Tan in Na Xa village, Mok Nam Commune. The police agency conducted an emergency search of his family's residence in the presence of the representative of the local government and the surprise of Tan's family members. At the same time at house number 16/987 NGO Gia 2, Duke Jong Ward, Long Bien District, subject of Pham Minh Hung also surprised when he put his hand in handcuffs number 8 of the police agency. Searching Hung's residence, the energy authorities obtained a taxi card, many Chinese banknotes. At the police investigation agency, he confessed 4 years ago when he came to Vietnam to work. When she eats, she often rides a motorbike taxi, so she knows him and he hires Hung to drive because she knows Chinese, so she trusts Hung to trade and collect money for her. When she sees a large amount of money from the north, Nin had 600 million dong, Hung was greedy, wanted to kill Tien to take this money. To do that, Hung called Tan and promised that if it was successful, he would give it to him. Converted into money to buy a motorbike and just paid off a debt for her family. On April 8, after entering Vietnam, Ms. Tien called Hung at Gia Lam bus station and then went to collect the money. At 5 p.m. meeting Tien, Hung made an excuse to invite her to visit Hung's mother, who was hospitalized in Hung Yen. Ms. Tien agreed without knowing that Tan had bought a hammer before and was ready to wait in the ditch. At the appointed place, the 2 boys and girls coldly killed Tien with hammer. Then hid the body in the water, put a threshold on the victim, drove a bamboo pole, held onto an umbrella string. The criminal behavior of the 2 brothers and sisters of the city was clarified by the police. Taking the life of an innocent person is unforgivable. But in this incident, Tien was also the one who helped Hung a lot. Sister Tien took care of all the expenses, invited Hung and Tan to come and play with Triet Jung for a while, find a job for Tan from China. That goodwill was returned by his nephew carrying resentment. Money and greed made them lose them. Out of humanity, considering Pham Thursday Viet's behavior, i.e. Hung is particularly dangerous to society, his attitude of disregard for the law, disregarding the lives of others, directly infringed upon the lives of his assets. Mrs. Tien's property, Hung has closely colluded with Tan and is determined to carry out the crime to the end. Hung is the mastermind, Tan holds the second role in the case, so with the crime of murder and robbery. The appellate court has sentenced Pham Minh Hung to death, Pham Minh Tan to life in prison. The strictness of the law is a warning bell for those who still harbor evil intentions. Turn back to the goodness of life before it's still too late.